It's just about time to get started. I don't expect Hedvig today because it's what, 2 or 3 a.m.
That's actually more social a time for her than when we normally record for her, which is like 9 a.m. I would put
For
more
her.
money on her
Yeah.
being here now than at the other time.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Hello and welcome to this special patron bonus episode of Because Language, a show about linguistics, the science of language. My name's Daniel Midgley, and with me now, he's forgotten more linguistics than the average master's student ever knew. It's Ben Ainsley.
It's just every week, everyone who's listening in the show is like, a lot of this stuff doesn't. I'm sure a lot of my replies don't make it in, but I often am just like, stop saying nice things. I don't like it.
It just floats on by. No, what I mean is it doesn't in one ear and out the other.
Yes, that is definitely the key takeaway from that message, is that I'm like a very ineffective sponge. Like the water just sloshes off me.
You're permeable.
Yeah.
But along
highly.
the way, you provide interesting excretions like a sponge. And so
I gotta say, I like this summation of my character better than the first one, so I'll take that. Ben Ainsley, occasional interesting secretions.
Linguistic sponge. There we go. That's not what usually people talk about babies as linguistic sponges, but you're in the opposite sense. Fascinating.
And we all know that the baby thing is bunk anyway.
Hedvig is probably not going to be with us unless she wakes up. So we have decided to make this show accessible in the Americas this time. So let's see. I'm just curious who's joining us from the Americas. Go ahead and pop yourself in chat there.
Oh, we've got a bunch of waves. Yeah, good call on that one.
Okay. We got some people I didn't expect as well. Some of our Parthians, like Lord Mortis and Pharaoh Cat. Awesome to see you. Got a few items from you, so you can jump on in to that one. We've got Cameron representing from Detroit, Michigan. We've got Rosh. Oh, great to see you. Rosh has an item coming up.
Oh,
Annika from Boston.
we got someone from Boston.
Boston.
Our fellow non-rotive Americans. I got a lot of time for the Boston accent.
Oh man, so many people. This is so great. Okay, and now the other thing that I want to know: who has decided to brave the clock and join us from Europe? Who we got?
We have any Europe? Oh, we've got
Angry Balls. Awesome.
Love it.
I saw who else? I saw somebody. Aria Flame? You're in Australia, aren't you? Okay. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, we do have a few, so this is great. And Ben and I are coming at you from Wajak Noongar Bujar, Perth, Australia, the land of the Noongar people, also known as Borlu. And we would like to just take the opportunity to pay our respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. So hello to everyone joining us on Zoom. These are our wonderful patrons. They give us ideas. They give us financial support. They make it possible to keep the show going, paying the bills. You folks are the reason that the regular episodes are free for everyone. So thanks for your support. Thanks for being here. We hope you're enjoying it. We hope you like it. So this episode is all about your stories. People have brought us things, and some people are actually here to present in their own words. So if you would like to, or if you have at certain intervals, if you have comments or questions, or even a story that we didn't get on the run sheet, you can just unmute and say what you got, and we'll make way for you. All right. Well, who's ready? Ready for some news? Okay.
I'm pumped.
We got a few here. So Diego, who wasn't able to be with us on this one, but he sent a recording for something a little later. This one's about climate and language again. So this is work from Professor Ian Madison and a team. He's from the University of New Mexico Department of Linguistics. And this one's about how climate affects language on a language-wide scale. If, for example, a place is a little higher in altitude, or a little moister, or a little bit colder, does that have an influence on the speech sounds in that language? Now,
hold up a second, Daniel.
Yes?
this is this is tickling a few different parts of the old memory cortex. I seem
Well,
to recall we had like a whole thing. We had like a palaver over this, did we not?
we sure did on multiple
Yeah.
occasions. And that's because this is based on work by Dr. Caleb Everett, University of Miami. We did at least 3 episodes with him on climate and phonology. And then when it all flared up again, and people got really angry about it as though they were discovering it for the first time, we did another episode. I think it was episode 33. You're wrong about Blasi Everett and so on. So yeah, this is that work kind of again. So let's
Is
go back
this
to Everett
now?
for a second.
So
Hmm.
scientifically, is this a person who's just like, I just really, really, really want to make sure that the data said what the data said? Is that what's going on here?
What's happening is this is somebody who was working on this contemporaneously with Everett, but just in different ways. And now they're
Okay,
releasing some work as a way of sort of pushing it forward, keeping
cool.
it going.
So let's
So,
Rocky Horror Picture Show it, right? Let's do the time warp again.
okay.
Lay it, like just like bare bones it out for us.
Here were Everett's 3 things. He proposed in 2013 that there were altitudes and ejectives. Ejectives are a kind of sound that we don't use in English, but they do in some languages. And it sounds like this. When you say a k sound in English, it sounds like k. And what I'm doing is I'm saying k with a puff of air. That's a normal sort of pulmonic plosive k. But if I'm doing it as an ejective, it sounds a bit like a beatbox. I'm not actually puffing that air out, except I am kind of gathering a little bit of air and then shooting it out that way. So instead of k, t, and p, ejectives sound like and. And these are speech
Okay.
sounds in some languages.
Your microphone is not picking up any of those sounds. I
Oh,
think you've got
sorry.
some sort of equalizer that is just like zhunking that exact frequency that all of those sounds make.
I could tell that it was blocking it. And no, you know what's happening. Zoom is treating it like noise. Okay.
Fair enough.
Because they're not speech sounds in English. Okay.
Right.
So
Thanks
one
again, Anglocentrism.
precisely colonialism destroys us all. So there was this idea that if you're high up on a mountain, you're more likely to have these ejective sounds. The second one, 2015, humidity and tone. Languages that are sitting around in less humid places are less likely to use tone.
So like swamp
And
equals tone, basically. Like
or
swampy, humidity, wet.
if I could put that the other way, no swampy leads to no tone.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other one was temperature and consonant clusters. When it's hot, you're more likely to do single consonants. And when you're in a cold place, the consonant clusters build up and they get crunchy. That was around 2017. Okay. Now, along the way, Sean Roberts helped us to break this down a little bit and show why this work was not very strong. And there were a couple of reasons. Number one, the results from Everett were significant, but the effect size was very tiny. So why would we think that the climate was responsible when it could be something else with that tiny of an effect size? All right. And the other problem was that the results were not robust. Sean Roberts switched to a different database of, for example, tone, and the results fell apart. Also, Everett used not running stretches of text, but simply word lists to figure out how many consonants and how many vowels were in the language, and he built his index that way. But that's from word lists. If you do it based on stretches of text, then you would get different results.
Okay. So basically, several times we were kind of like, it's not great. It's not
we were
great science.
we were like, this is really interesting, but I can't figure out what the problem was. And then Sean showed us what the problems were, which
Right.
was really nice. Okay, so now to this new work. What we see is here's the claims they're making. They're doing 3: mountains and adjectives, humidity and tone, and temperature and consonants.
Okay. So we're back to square 1, 2, and 3, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like we are. And the other thing is, I tried to read through the bits and see if they've addressed the problems with word lists and robustness. And I haven't been able to find that they are addressing these concerns adequately or approaching them. They are approaching some things in a slightly different way, but it seems like they're trying to establish the same sort of patterns. So, um, this work makes me feel like I've been doing this for a very long time. I feel like
You old.
I'm becoming the institutional memory for linguistics, but I think maybe everybody feels like that. Maybe all
Or
linguists feel like that.
perhaps that's a very nice way to say it, Daniel. I would have put you closer to the man on the rocking chair on the porch throwing things at the kids as they run by the house. Just like, I told you 15 times, altitude does not affect adjectives.
You kids, get off of my map. So there are still people trying to establish this idea. A lot of linguists are convinced that it's bad linguistics. I don't think it's bad linguistics. I just think it's not likely to lead to very strong results so far. But, you know, we'll be keeping an eye on it as long as there are people to push it around.
Okay, so that's 4. We're up to 4. We should just have like a little tally. Like maybe we can make up a little graphic. Same thing with like animals doing language and stuff, and we'll just put like a little tally mark next to it as it goes, and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
hey, we did
Or
the
like,
sideways one. We're up to 5. Yay!"
or like Superior Wharf again.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's see. This one was related to us by Diego and Angry Balls. Work from Guy Gunther's of Tel Aviv University and team, published in PNAS Nexus, which is more fun to say than PNAS. It's about cuneiform, cuneiform and Akkadian. Angry Balls, you are here. Do you want to jump on and tell us what's going on here? Or you want me to drive?
I actually don't remember at all. Remembering sharing this. I'm sorry.
Okay. It was back there in the Discord. This is the thing, right? You put stuff in show ideas. You say, this is kind of cool. I'll read it later, but I'll post it here now. And then Daniel finds it. And then suddenly, you know, there it is. You've contributed. Well, I appreciate that. So I did the work for this one. Everybody knows about cuneiform, right? These cool.
Okay. Can I take a stab?
Yeah, go for it.
So like I think cuneiform means any written language that is made in a similar way, which is like the pointy, like sort of if you take a square end of a stick and you lean like a corner of that stick in, you can make different sorts of triangles. You can make like fat triangles and skinny triangles and a few other bits and pieces. Yeah. And you can make a fairly like robust written language that way. And it's quite, I think the thing about it is it's like cuneiform handwriting is like probably way better than mine because you've got a really consistent way of making the marks on the clay.
Yeah, but take a look at this thing that I've shared. You can see, I hope everybody can see that.
Is slow.
It's
He's
somebody
very
practicing.
slow.
It's cool. It's kind of, you know, contemplative just watching someone do it, though. The results are remarkably
This is uniform. Like all those TikToks you watch where someone's telling a story and then underneath someone is like making goo or something.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Why are they always doing something while, like, they're always combing their hair or doing makeup while they're talking about really important stuff?
Weirdly gendered ones you brought in there, Daniel.
Or they're changing oil or something.
Yeah, good save, man. Really pulled out of the nosedive on that one.
Thanks. Well, most of cuneiform we have are written in Sumerian and Akkadian. These are languages from long ago, round about 5,000 years ago, some of the first writing that we have. And there are so many of these texts that it's really, really hard to translate them all. So this team from
Meaning
Tel Aviv
just
University,
from a labor perspective, like we just don't have the time.
It's just super, it would just take a long time and it's a massive effort. So this team is working on using machine translation to translate them automatically from Akkadian into English.
That's fun. As soon as you said like, oh, there's way too much to do, I'm like, that sounds like a job for computers.
It is, but it's hard because cuneiform characters can be either an entire word,
right,
or a sound. So
okay.
Already there's trouble.
Oh, so you've got like an inconsistent internal sort of like system essentially.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But it wasn't. Remember that writing in the early days was come as you are. right?
You
So
like it was brand new. We were just trying stuff out and seeing what
just
worked.
whatever we could do. In
Yeah.
fact, sometimes they were even like there were characters that were semantic determinatives. Let me tell you what that means. You would write the word for wood, but the word for wood could be used for something else, or if it's a sound, then it could be something really, really different. So you include a little cue like a tree branch or something that means wood. And that's their way of saying, hey, this thing that
This
I
is the
just wrote,
wood one.
this is the wood one. It's not the bird
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's also hard because there's no spaces or punctuation.
Again, like when you're
Yep.
just trying it out, you don't realize like when you invent the car, you probably make it go first, and then you're like, braking could
Mm.
be handy.
Exactly. Well, this team used neural nets, so neural net machine translation, just like Google Translate does now. And it does a pretty good job. It actually gets pretty good scores on Bleu, which is a way of evaluating machine translations.
Cool.
And then here are some failures though. The right translation of one of them was, "Why should we conduct the lawsuit before a man from Libby Ali?" That was the correct translation as done by a human. The machine did, "They are in the inner city, in the inner city." So
Okay, so room for improvement.
as with all machine translation, um, what I love though, did you know, Ben, that cuneiform, you can do cuneiform in Unicode?
What, okay, hold on. You mean that like big list of funny characters that you can access from keyboards that you can use to make like fun like emoticons and that sort of thing. Some
Mhm.
of those are actual cuneiform characters.
There's, there's Latin script, there's Cyrillic script, there's Greek, there's all the different languages of the world, and there's cuneiform.
That
But,
is
mm,
so cool.
yeah,
I'm Googling that immediately. You're going to hear
yeah.
loud clacking.
Go ahead, fill our chat with cuneiform translation. So that means that there's a good way to represent it on a computer, and that means that it becomes tractable. So this work is pretty cool. It looks like they're using it now, not for anything really serious, but they're using it to maybe give humans a rough idea of what's going on so that then they can come in and make a better translation. How about
I'm just sorry, I got completely distracted. I'm putting cuneiform in the chat.
that? Okay, let's see it.
I will be
Anybody?
honest, I,
Look at
I
you.
feel like various video game designers over the last 20 or 30 years have just like Control C, Control V when they want to do like demonic script. That's the biggest like visual um
It's our
association I have stuff with stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, so he's obviously a necromancer. Like that's just
it's our
clear.
new Zalgo text, right?
It's
When you
cool
said
though. I can't believe there's heaps as well. Like there's not like a little bit. There's stacks. I'm putting more in there. Boom.
when you
Look at
said
that.
demonic text, I thought you said demotic text, and I was wondering what you meant. Oh well.
Nerd. Wow, some cuneiform, I have to say, I'm just putting more and more in,
Yeah.
is a lot more complex than I probably appreciated. There is
Mm-hmm.
some really, really highly detailed stuff here.
It, yeah, I like the video that I just showed. That was, whoa, that was pretty rudimentary. Some of the
Yeah,
strings
compared to
get
what I'm seeing, for
and
sure.
like angles, and no wonder people decided on alphabets. Oh, the
Yeah,
alphabet.
for,
What an invention.
for
Oh my
sure.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's
Okay.
really cool. I have discovered cuneiform Unicode, and that alone makes that story worthwhile. Not to mention all of the legitimately interesting things that came along with that story.
Here's another legitimately interesting thing. This I titled this one "Ontogeny Recapitulates Phylogeny Maybe." This is about language. One of the things that I love about language is the patterns, and especially with child language. So children can make lexical extensions if a word that they want is unavailable. So I don't have the video, but when my oldest daughter was 2 learning language, I showed her an apple and said, "What's this?" And she said it was an apple. I showed her a banana and she said, "Nana." And then I showed her a pear. She didn't have that word in her lexicon, but she extended apple. She called it an apple. And then I showed her a lemon. I said, "What's this?" She said, "Apple." And then I held up the banana again and said, "But what's this?" "Nana." It was very cute. So children do this, but languages do exactly the same thing over time. So if you have the word ball and then you have a floaty sort of helium thing, you can take that ball and extend it or even build on it like balloon.
Oh, that's cool.
You see where this is going though?
I, until this very moment, did not realize that balloon was like a form of ball. That's interesting.
Yeah. Somebody find out, is that an augmentative? I think it must be. Mm. Okay. So the question is there any connection between the way that children extend meanings and the way that languages extend meanings? Because if there is a connection, then what you found is something that makes sense to humans. That,
Right, like it's just it's a bit inherenty.
yeah. So this is
Okay.
work from Dr.
Okay.
Thomas Brockhagen from Universitat Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona and a team published in Science. First thing they did was they built a model to predict how likely a word is to relate to another word, how likely a language is to extend this word into that word. And they
Okay.
thought,
So
okay,
wait, are we thinking like just sorry for being stupid, like semantal style?
kind of, yeah. I mean, that was
Okay.
one aspect. Like English does ball and balloon. How likely is that? Is that a freak appearance or is it
Right.
something? So they said, okay, well, how are things in the world like each other? They said, well, some things look like other things. That's one. Some things are associated with other things, like fork and plate.
Sure.
Some things are taxonomic, like an apple is a kind of fruit, so apple and fruit are related,
Yep. So like
and
branching concepts.
kind of. And then affective, which is described as how pleasant and intense a term is, like sunny. Okay.
Right. So by that logic, would like stormy and well, no, because they're related by topics. So like sunny and happy would is
Exactly.
that okay?
She had a sunny disposition,
Okay.
or what's another, we're expecting some stormy problems coming up, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a lot of these words are related to each other. Ball and balloon would score high. Plate and fork would score high, very likely to blend into each other. Whereas other words like, I don't know, chocolate and pen, not related to each other very well. They don't have very much in common, so we wouldn't expect a language to do that.
Yeah, my chocolate pen business was very short-lived,
I'm
unfortunately.
sorry to hear that, by the
Yeah.
way. You can unload some of those chocolate pens onto me, though. They were very
Yeah,
tasty.
yeah, go straight in your shame nom pile.
So they built a model to see what words were likely to extend to each other, but not just in English, in 1,400 languages.
Damn.
Spanish, Catalan, Basque, Galician, German, Portuguese, but also Swahili, Arabic, Mandarin, Hindi, Korean. So they did a lot there.
So this is a fundamental to human beings kind of thing.
Well, they found that those words were very likely to be related to each other based on those four things. That's a human experience thing. Okay,
Cool.
but then they threw out that model and got a database.
I love it. Okay, we've done all this work. Now get rid of all of that.
No one must ever see this. Then they got databases of child extension errors, like when my daughter said that a pear was an apple.
Right.
And they tried to find out if they could predict if the child errors were based on those same four factors and if they could use them to predict what languages would do. And in fact, the child data was a fairly good predictor of not just what kids do, but what languages do, according to those four ideas. Wow.
So
So
essential to human languaging.
I think we found that children and populations do the same kind of things because those things make sense to humans. How about that? I just thought that was really cool. When you see something like that, it just makes me feel excited.
Maybe it's related to that whole like the total number of human beings in a group is inversely proportional to its intelligence kind of thing. So like when you study language by mass, you're dealing with large groups of people. And as we all know from Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black, that's a movie, Daniel, by the way, that's a famous movie.
Thanks. Thanks.
You like a person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky animals.
Haven't seen it, by the way. Yeah, brain gets bigger, social group gets bigger. That's right. something else to talk about. But now I think it might be time for our favorite game.
Related or not?
Related or not. So
George isn't at home. Please leave a message after the beep. Sorry.
this one comes to us from Pharaohcat. Pharaohcat, do you want in on this? Are you ready to present this one to us?
Muscle in
there
on
we go.
Lord
She's just
Mortis's.
back. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I'll switching to my laptop until after we've done this.
Okay. So you left us one on the Discord and I was entranced. So what were you musing about back then?
Okay, so I was thinking, so I am like I learning Spanish at the moment. And while I was learning Spanish, I was thinking about the word casa, which is house, and how language change has turned a k into a that's an H sound because you probably can't hear it on my microphone. And I was wondering, is the English word house related to the Spanish word casa, but gone about with that, that sound change from k to h?
I love that one, by the way. But let me just before we go on to the other one, there was a k to h thing, which is why centum 100 became 100 in English. My favorite one is that English have looks like Latin habere, which means to have something, and so you would think that that was the same, but in fact they're not cognates. The cognate is Latin capere, like capture. And then the k in capere turned into h. So I like that one a lot. Okay, so we've got one puzzle. And what's the other half of this?
The other half is I was thinking of the word castle.
Yes,
wondering,
I've always wondered this.
Yeah, is that related to casa? So
this is.
Which, I mean, it would make sense because they're both places that you live and they both have that cas sort of beginning. And I have no idea where the silent T comes into this, but those were my musings.
Okay, well, I have made a poll. So are you ready to play, everybody? Get your clicking fingers ready. Here we go. I'm launching this one. Okay, so castle and casa, are they related or are they not?
I don't get to vote. This is totally bunk.
Sorry, Ben, that's the cost of being a co-host in case this whole thing goes
power.
down.
Democracy is a lie. What?
While we're waiting, Annika says, chateau, castle in French, seems related to casa too. Oh. So we got 3, casa, chateau, and castle. Could it be that one of those is a doublet? All right. What do you think, Ben?
Well, I'm a little bit torn on this one, right? I'm wondering if it's one of those things of both castle and casa have a older relative. That's what I'm wondering, which is why the TLE and potentially also chateau. Like there was one thing that sounded a certain way before the days of like regularly writing things down, and that word spread through some Romance and Germanic languages. And then it just ended up in a lot of different ways. The house one, I'm really... Oh, that's a tricky one.
Let's leave house for a second,
okay,
because we're getting to that one. That's the next question. My answer was I didn't think they were related. I just thought that there was more going on with castle, and also
because someone Angry Balls mentions that Castillo in Spanish is castle, I think, but then that follows sort of again really. I'm right outside my knowledge here, but isn't Spanish one of those languages where like littler, less significant things usually just have like a diminutive form of the bigger word, right? Yep. So casa and castillo would actually make a bit of sense.
Which is funny because we don't think of a castle as a little house, do we?
No, that's what I mean. Castillo, which is their word for castle, and then casa, which is like little castle.
All right, I'm gonna shut off the poll. We've got 14 people have answered, and let's display those results.
It's close. It's a tight one.
Yep. 47% say it's split right down the middle. 7 of us say related. 8 of us say not related. Okay. This one is a little bit fuzzy. The answer is probably not related, but possibly.
All right. Lay it on us.
Castle happened twice in English. Before the year 1000 CE, we had Late Old English castel, which was a village. But
Okay.
after the year 1000, we had Old Northern French castel, which meant a fort, and Latin castellum was a diminutive of castrum, which was a fort. That's why when you see castra in English names, it means a castle or a fort. So it works its way into Chester, like Chichester or Winchester. When you see that
And like
Chester ending, that's castle.
Doncaster and places like
Yes,
that.
precisely. Okay, so that comes from sort of something Latiny, whereas casa in Spanish seems to come from Latin casa, a different word, hut or cottage or cabin, which is of uncertain origin, possibly from Proto-Indo-European cat, K-A-T. Now this is interesting, cut meant to link or to weave together in a kind of chain.
Which I guess was the kind of dwellings you would make, right? You would put some like poplars together and you would weave some sticks and you'd daub it with mud and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's why the sense extended, but there's our extension again, right? Because of metonymy, to a hut or a shed. So probably from Proto-Indo-European cat. Okay, but now here's the tricky bit. There are some sources that say that castle might also go back to cat in Proto-Indo-European, but maybe not. I looked it up in Chambers, the Chambers Dictionary. By the way, if you've already bought the Chambers Dictionary, don't buy the Barnhart Dictionary because they're exactly the same book right down to the individual pages, and I didn't know that. So it's got castle as, where are we? Can't read right now. It says that it was related to possibly Latin castrare, to cut off, and therefore it would be cognate of castle.
So, right. So
I guess
castle is closer to castration than it is to casa.
Well, maybe, or it might go back to the fort or the so what we're getting is that casa possibly comes from Proto-Indo-European cat, and then castle also possibly comes from the same place, but that's two possiblies. In order to
Now,
get
is
that
this the
right,
sort of thing that this sort of stuff is going to happen whenever we're talking about like super fundamental to human existence things?
yes,
Right,
we
like a
often see
dwelling
the
is
phrase.
just so universal that it like sort of muddies the waters a little bit.
Yeah, we often see the phrase of uncertain origin when we get to stuff in this domain.
Right, okay.
There's another interesting thing. Spanish alcazar, castle, does come from Latin castrum, but it's been funneled through Arabic, alcazar, and there's that Arabic influence in Spain.
Yeah.
Okay. And now it's time for the next one.
Casa and house.
Okay. Casa and house. Ben, what's your idea?
We'll put the votes out, and I'll do like a little bit of like do 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 do.
You're my think music.
Yeah. Worst think music ever.
Launch. There we go. I found the place where you can launch. All right. Casa and house. Sorry, Casa. Listen to me. Casa.
Casa
¿Dónde
and
está la
house.
casa?
I reckon I'm going to go not related on this one. And my thinking goes that house is one of those funny words that is way newer than we think it might, than you would expect it to be. I'm
House is
wondering
new?
if,
Okay.
yeah, I'm wondering if house is one of those words like for I don't know, 1500 years in Old English, we called it like hut. And then in the last 300 years, we were like, well, we can't call them huts anymore. We got to call them houses or something. And so it's actually got like a fairly distinct little path of its own. That's my logic.
There are all kinds of weird little things like that, like cut cut. The word cut, you'd think it was super old, but it's actually kind of new. Nobody cut things until later.
There's these funny little, like the opposite of a fossil.
Yeah.
like a you would imagine this to be an ancient and storied word, and it's like, no, some guy in like 1954 was like, well, this is a cool way to say it.
Pharaoh Cat, I forgot to ask you, what was your guess?
Well, my first thought was that they were related, just because I really like the idea that there was a sound change that happened, and that's
because
why...
I want it to be true.
And that means
that is exactly what I'm thinking, because I want it to be true.
Okay. Good. That
It's a good
has
reason.
always served me well
Yeah.
in my life. Does anybody else want to throw in? Okay, we've got everyone throwing in their guess. And again, if you've got something important to say, go ahead and unmute. Pharaoh Cat, you've also asked, could house and husband be related? I know that one. Turns
I
out it
was
is.
actually going to chip in on the husband thing, but go
Please.
ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. I've been talking enough.
So I don't know this for a fact, but from I studied Scandinavian languages in university, and so I have I think it might be just like, so hus in Scandinavian languages is like a house, and bonde, or what, yeah, bonde in Norwegian specifically, is a farmer, or like a general, like a peasant of some kind.
Worker, yeah.
And so I'm reasonably sure it's something like husband, like husbonde, something like that.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Exactly right. Husbunda, meaning the owner of the house, the worker of the house. Yep.
Very
There you
nice.
go.
Thank you. All
That's
right.
really cool.
We are going to end this. What do most people say? Oh, my answer was, I don't think they're related because I think house is actually super old. So I went opposite.
Oh, you
of
did the
Ben.
opposite. Okay.
I think it was too old for a thing. Okay, let's see the results. We have more people saying related on this one. 9 out of 16 of us say related, but again, that's close. That's 56%, whereas 44% not.
If this was an American election, we would probably give it to the not related side.
Okay, let's see the actual answer. This one, this one's more certain. This one is not related.
Oh.
House, we've already talked about what casa goes back to, but house goes back to Proto-Germanic husan, and then the trail ends. We don't know why husan was there, possibly because it's related to hide. The house is the place where you hide, but that's just a guess.
There we go.
It turns out that chateau and castle are related. Those are doublets, which is very nice. Also, I never made the link between a casa and a casino, a little house.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course.
How about that? All these funny little things that we just never think of. Pharaoh Cat, thank you so much for bringing that one to us. That was a lot of fun.
I will keep throwing my musings into the Discord and see what happens.
Yes, please.
Be like Angry Balls and just completely forget about it and be like, what thing? Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, I still don't remember. But I don't know how often we can just participate like this, like verbally. But I have a question, if you know.
Yeah, go nuts.
Do we know of any cognates of casa, or casa specifically, in English or Germanic languages as a whole? Do we know?
Well, okay, so we just mentioned casino, which popped in, and that got borrowed into English.
Do they call them that in Germanic language places though, or do they have another word for it?
Oh, yeah. Any of our Scandinavian speakers, is it called a casino? Is it pretty much just jumping?
In Norwegian it's casino,
Okay.
or something like that. But in surely in Old Norse it wasn't that.
Okay.
Because it sounds more like a romance, or at least italic word to me, not at all a Germanic one.
But of course, borrowing is definitely a thing. We've got lots of things coming up in the chat, which you can see. Anne asks, what about case? Or Dustin, casing like for a sausage, which is it's a sausage's little house. Also, cassettes.
We will make a house out of the pig's intestines for its meat.
A tasty, tasty house. All right. Now, now here's another one. This one's from Liz. Liz, are you around? I didn't see you in the list, but Liz sent me an email, hello@becauselanguage.com. I loved the episode recently with Emily Bender. I did a unit of computational linguistics at UWA back in the early 90s when we were using Lisp to write code that could identify noun phrases and verb phrases in a sentence. Language processing has come a long way since then. It sounds like you might need a break from related or not. So did we need a do we need a break from it? I don't. So maybe from time to time, it would be interesting to guess the order in which a set of semantically related words entered English with their current meaning. Ho ho, ho ho ho. So based on Liz's suggestion, I worked up this list and I made my guess. So I'm going to give you 4 words in the same domain in English. You have to guess the order in which they popped in. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The words are chair, couch, sofa, and stool. That was in alphabetical order. All 4 things that you sit on. Chair, couch,
Ooh, okay.
sofa, and stool. It's time to, now I can't do a kind of poll where you drag them around into an order.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to pop this one in chat. Chair, couch, sofa, and stool. Okay. Would anyone like to give their guess? What's the earliest?
I think stool is going to be earliest.
Vote for stool. Okay.
Oh, there we go. I hit enter too soon, like a boomer. Sorry, everyone.
Stool, chair. We've talked about the boomer thing. Stool, chair, couch, sofa. Okay. I see some votes, moving around. There does seem to be, there's a bit of alternation between sofa and couch. Which one came first? Oh, a bit of alternation between stool and chair. I'm enjoying this. Okay.
I love that there's very clear, I don't think there's been one exception to chair and stool definitely being on one end of the spectrum and couch and sofa definitely being on the other.
Yep. Yeah, there seems to be a real strong bifurcation, which is surprising for reasons that I'll give a little later.
Oh, you look at you dropping the tasty hints.
Okay.
Are we allowed to participate?
Yes, please. Please do.
Like I'm reasonably sure stool came first because they're like related words in the European languages. For example, like stol in many Slavic languages means table. And you have like stool in Scandinavian languages, which means a chair or something like a chair.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's so, but especially like the Slavic stol, which is a table, which is chair or stool like.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Makes me have like a reasonable inkling that it's much older than the other ones.
Okay. Thank you. Angry balls. And let's see. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that chair and couch sound French, which I think is fair. That motivated my choice. I said that stool was definitely first because it just sounded old, probably Old English. Then chair and couch. I had to guess. I said chair first and then couch later for social reasons because it also sounded French, coucher. And then I put sofa last. So I said stool, chair, couch, sofa. Does that sound right to you?
Sofa is going to sink us all and it's going to be this weirdly, bizarrely old thing now.
Okay. So let's get to the answers. The first one was stool.
Ooh.
It was the thing that you sat on, and it was any kind of chair. But then the next one, chair, came in the 1200s. OED says 1297, came in from French. And because chair rose in prominence, it pushed out stool. So now stool.
Oh, God, Daniel.
Well,
I saw your face. You were entirely too happy with yourself on that one.
There's a link here. The stool now it could still be a chair, but it had to be the kind that had no back. Right. Or it could be the kind of chair that you sit on while pooping, and then it meant poop because
is that how we actually got stool?
It is.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It is.
I will allow it, but I still did not enjoy your little smirk,
You're not happy
buddy.
about it. No. Audio listeners don't have to put up with that. Okay, so we've got stool and then chair. And then just a little bit later, in the mid 1300s, we've got couch. And that's interesting because
Hey.
I think a lot of us put a really strong line between chair and couch. Like we
Yeah.
would alternate chair and stool or sofa and couch, but not too many people alternated chair and couch. But yeah, those were pretty close. And then finally,
Did
sofa.
couch, hang on though, did couch mean what we now think it to mean, or did it just mean another chair?
It actually meant just a chair for a
Right.
while. But it meant a lie down place. And then it meant a certain kind of thing. That one came a bit later.
Yeah, well,
The,
because
the
I'm
kind of
sure
furniture
I
that
was
it is.
thinking the same thing most people were, which was the idea of a couch and a sofa as a thing in a house is a very it's like a industrial revolution kind of thing. Like it's a very
Yeah.
new idea.
Yeah, that is. And sofa came even later. That's from Turkish sofa. And it wasn't even a piece of furniture for a while. It was just a raised part of the floor that you would sit on. And they would
Oh, okay.
cover it with pillows and blankets and things. And then
There
you
you
would
go.
sit on it. And we don't see an actual sofa until 1700s. The OED and Edom Online says 1717.
There we
How
go.
about that?
I got it right. Yay!
Liz, thank you, Liz. That was great. All right, let's keep things moving along. If, by the way, if you have suggestions for related or not, you can send them to us. You can slap them in the Discord. You could even put them in chat right now and fight over them during the boring bits of what we're doing. But now, it's time for words of the week.
Do 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 do. It's words of the week. That's all
You're
I got.
coming dangerously close for having to improv a thing for words of the week like you used to, and
Yeah, I
you
know. I
stopped
better
having to
be.
do
I
that.
better be careful.
I'm going to put you back
I
on
don't.
that.
I got off the junk, man. I don't want to go back.
I'm going to ask everybody, including you, Ben, to start off with what's your candidate for word of the year? Because it's going to be word of the year season. Have you noticed? Do you have any sense of what's the big ones?
I actually think I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like the pace of natural disasters this year is noticeably in like it's a very noticeable uptick has occurred between fires and hurricanes and flooding and droughts and all this kind of stuff. It's getting really serious, and obviously, hashtag because climate change. So I think like natural disaster or just disaster might be like a real, because it doesn't have to be a new word, right? It's just like the one that is most relevant and used and that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, something disastery.
Yeah, something in that space.
Okay. All right. I'm going to appeal to our listeners. What's your pick? Unmute and unload.
Indict. I agree,
Indict.
Aria Flame.
I like that Aria Flame has indict. I like the word indict because it's got a C in there, a silent C, very rare in English. And the reason is it didn't used to have a C. It came to us from French with no C, Indite. And then the Latinizing busybodies said, oh, this comes from Latin indicare. So, or from dicare anyway, to say or to tell. So let's stick the C in there so that everybody will remember. So
which is why until I think this year where it kept coming up, I had no idea how it was actually pronounced. Like so many words I learned from reading, and I thought it was indict because that's what it looked like.
No shame, Aria Flame. We've all been there. It's happened to all of us.
It's a Persephone for you. It's one of your Persephones. That's what I like to call only Redditisms. Okay, cool. I'm seeing a core from Anne. Core seems like a candidate.
Ungoogleable, Linda. Yeah, I'll back that. That's a fun one.
It's okay to unmute and tell us, since you're here, but if you just want to chat, that's cool too. We'll just be reading these. Yes,
I'm really loving the hot X summer sort of thing, because it started, of course, with hot girl summer, and then it was like something girl autumn. But the one I keep seeing now is hot labor summer because of all of the union action and strikes that are happening a lot.
Nice. Can you give us a sense, like I was aware of hot girl summer, but kind of missed it. Why is there a summer with a girl in it, and why is she hot? What was behind that? Do you have any sense?
The way I figure it is, and I could be completely wrong about this, this is just from vibes, um, is it comes from like um the spring break sort of culture in the US, or where you get the girls going out in their cute little bikinis in the summer and just having a real good time, and not really caring about anything else. It's like this is the time to be hot girl and have a fun.
And have a fun. And
Yeah, like
that's the kind of summer that this is.
almost an acknowledgement of like we're sort of actively throwing off the shackles of expectations and what it is to be like a good girl and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like hot girl summer.
Okay.
I saw Hot Girl Summer come up. I think it was part of the City Girls, part of a hip hop rap group stuff, and they were coming out with Hot Girl Summer was like one of their songs, is where I seem to remember it coming from, like Megan the Stallion and those folks. It's gonna be Hot Girl Summer. That was
Okay.
what I.
If it's a cool word that young white people enjoy, we can reliably guess that it was stolen from Ave.
Yep. But there was a song involved. I knew there was some kind of music involved. Okay. And now it's worked its way into a kind of a template, what some linguists call a snow clone, but I like just calling it a template. So hot X summer. Okay. Cool. I think that the word of the year has just got to be AI. You hear it
True.
absolutely freaking everywhere. Every time there's a presentation by a tech company, there's always a supercut of every time that they said the word AI, 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 AI. And like it's being used as a selling point. I noticed that when we were talking earlier about the Akkadian machine translation, all the articles said, oh, AI, it's translating things. And I'm like, this is machine translation. I mean, it is AI, but they're not calling it MT, are they? They're calling it AI.
Right.
Oh.
Like it's now become the phrase that we use for any time computer does hard thing.
Except as Lord Mortis points out, Apple appears to be assiduously avoiding the term AI.
Yeah, there's actually sort of a lot of podcasters in the Apple sphere that I listen to are taking bets onto whether Apple will actually mention that phrase or what they're going to say that's not that phrase.
Right.
Because
like
they have to say something
Appleism,
on Tuesday.
Like Apple, like it'll be AM, Apple Smarts or something.
Well, it's more like they talk about like the app learning from your like the phone learning from your preferences or things like that and presenting you, but they never use the word, like the phrase artificial intelligence.
Well, because it runs counter to what they've pivoted to in terms of their brand identity, right? So they've sort of, certainly from what I've observed over the last, I don't know, year or so, Apple is like, will be the one who really like focuses on privacy. All of their phone ads now are all about like, oh, like screw you Google, screw you Facebook, like our phone will protect you. So you can't do that and then be like, but also we will record everything and learn from you.
Once we do AI and add that, then we'll be cooking with gas.
Yeah, it's
Apple is the guy who tells everyone they don't listen to the mainstream bands and that they don't know the mainstream celebrities.
That's what I should do. I should say I don't know pop culture because I'm too cool for that. That's it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Daniel, in Apple's instance, you need to be able to be cool to sell that lie.
Dang, okay. I'm interested in Apple nomenclature. In the late 80s, it was power. Everything had power
in
the
power
name.
book and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And then in the 90s, it was E. There was an E in front of everything. And then in the 2000s, it was always I. Everything was always I. And
on that, just to expand, so just to give everyone some context, we're about to have this year's Apple phone, like the September announcement that happens. So they're going to tell us what the new phone is and what some of us will be spending way too much money on very shortly.
Yep.
But one of the other questions everyone has is, so they released a new watch, and it's like the sports watch, and they called it the Ultra, and it's the second time Apple has used Ultra as one of their like product modifiers. They usually have like a set of product modifiers that they use, like Pro or Ultra. So the phones have traditionally been like Phone Pro, and Phone Max, and then there's the Phone Pro Max, which is
Yes.
both bigger and like better. And so there's a question this year is like, is the phone Pro Max going to be called the phone Ultra? So like the iPhone 15 Ultra or something like that. So they're gonna, are they gonna discard these and their marketing metrics, their marketing sort of names that Apple uses to designate.
Does anyone else just hear like Grande and Venti and stuff? 'Cause
That's what it is. It is that.
that.
Like it's Apple's version of that thing. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
exactly what I hear.
All right. Well, let's go on. I'm going to share something here. Dude, this is from Diego. This is another one. This is going to be our name of the week. Let's see.
Name of the week. Okay.
Yep. Here we go.
Is this going to work? Those are a lot of pixels. Or actually, not very many pixels, but in a very big space.
There we go.
So I came across a CNN article about the name that India is using for itself at this year's G20 summit, which is actually taking place this weekend. India is hosting for the first time in New Delhi, and when the invites went out to the various world leaders, they were issued by the president of Bharat as opposed to the usual president of India. So there's a renewed social and political conversation about what India should be called by the rest of the world. Now, India and Bharat are essentially interchangeable. The Indian Constitution uses both names. Both names appear on passports and other official documents. But which one you use seems to be a matter of preference and identity and even political ideology. The CNN article talks about how this is a big deal because it could potentially change how India is referred to on a global scale, similar, I think, to how Turkey recently changed the spelling of its name. So under Prime Minister Modi, the Indian government has been trying to break away from its imperial British past, including by changing the names of streets, buildings, and even islands to remove any trace of colonialism. And because the term India is what was adopted by the British, who ruled the country for some 200 years, many argue that it should no longer be used. But Prime Minister Modi is a member of the nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, so some people think the name change is just another tactic that his party is using to push their Hindu nationalist agenda. Now, the word India comes from Greek and Persian, relating to the Indus River, which is ultimately a borrowing from the Sanskrit word Sindhu, and Bharat comes directly from a Sanskrit word used in the Rig Veda to describe one of the original tribes of the region. I think it's worth pointing out that India's Supreme Court previously rejected requests in 2016 and 2020 to rename India to Bharat, and also that the term Hindustan also exists, and that it was considered at one point, but the country ended up settling on just India and Bharat, but Hindustan is still the word for India in Urdu.
Y'all got excited about that one. What was going on?
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of countries doing this, basically. Like I would love for Japan to do it in relation to like Nippon and stuff like that. It's great. It's really fun. And we've had heaps of people in the chat talk about like a surprisingly large number of times this has happened quite recently. We've got, where are we? Sorry, scroll. We had the Czech Republic, which of course for a while was Czechoslovakia, but then they got rid of Slovakia. Then they went to Czechia. Then we've got, obviously, famously recently, Turkey has been like, hey, everyone, I would prefer Turkey. And everyone, mostly, as far as I can tell, was like, cool, I'm down with that. Is there any others?
It's interesting because last time we had a show with Diego, or Diego's Digest, he mentioned about COVID guidelines in Sanskrit being broadcast at Varanasi Airport. And some people were like, why are we doing this? And other people were like, this is awesome. This is India. And other people were like, is this the Sanskrit folks trying to Sanskritize everything? What's going on? So
So essentially here we need to acknowledge that like obviously language does things other than communicate effectively. And so so Sanskrit, I'm
the choice of
speaking
language matters.
as a real white guy here, but to my really dummy white guy knowledge, Sanskrit occupies roughly the same sort of space that Latin does, like the actual Latin language, which is to say very few people speak it. It is mostly a dead language, and now people are using it, not unlike in the West, as like a, well, if you really want to be like a properly smart person, you will like know Latin. Like, you know how there's those people in like Western circles where it's just like, I lament the days when we would sit around and learn Latin and be actually smart people, unlike the stupid people now. And I think Sanskrit kind of exists in that space, but also has like a bunch of like really noxious kind of like, to be Indian is this thing and not this thing, which in a country with as many different languages and ethnicities and religions is a difficult pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of people.
It's a power move,
yeah,
for sure. Like a CEO that tries to like brand stuff their way so that they can make an impact or something. I don't know if that's what Modi's doing, but it's a move. So, and I had not realized that Bharat was an alternate name.
It's neither had I. I saw this came up on a TikTok, and it's like line 1 of the Constitution. It's like India, comma, which has always been Bharat. And it's like, oh, okay, right. It's like the fourth word in their Constitution. Good to know.
Wow, how much I knew about this. Hey, gosh, I need to get out more. This is why I don't have time for television. Okay, so that was an interesting one.
Excuses.
Something to watch for. This one was a tweet suggested to us by Jello for Marcelo, one by Helen. I'll drop the text in chat. It is, the heat this summer has me sleep-coated, bed-pilled, and rest-maxing. Wow.
I have not heard any of these words.
Well, okay, hang on. You've seen things being coded for something else.
Oh, like gay coded or like villain coded and that sort of thing. Okay, cool. Okay. Now run me past pilled.
we've had lots of discussions about how Disney villains are queer coded, right?
Right.
And that's been going on. Pilled, red pill is one of those.
Oh,
yep.
Oh my god. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you, Lord Mortis.
Yeah, pilled is like, it's just become a thing. I was looking at something earlier today. I can't remember what specific like prefix was, but it's you know, it's an active. There's a special word you have for this active suffix stuff where people just stick new things in front of it. But yeah, pilled is definitely out there and in use. So yeah, coming from red and blue pilled, obviously being the original ones, but there's, you know, all sorts of things out
now
there
now we're getting into some sad areas. There's black pill. You can get black pill. You can get yeah. And then maxing. We had a bit, one of our words of the week a few episodes ago was slow maxing, where you're taking the time to make that chili or to make, you know, make some art or something like that.
Shameless nerd admission here. The only productive version of that I know is min-maxing. So in video games where you can control your character's sort of various qualities, you approach it like in a real sort of like spreadsheet finance bro kind of way, where you just like, intelligence, I have no use for you, all the strength, all the charisma, but if you encounter a door with a lock, well, you're gonna die of hunger because you won't be able to figure it out.
Can I just say that I felt recently, I can't stand The Matrix. And then I watched The Matrix again and I realized I love The Matrix. I just don't feel very good about Matrix fans.
How did you ever arrive at the conclusion that The Matrix, singular, because obviously there was no further movies made?
No, there were no
the first
sequels.
One was.
I don't know. The new one is, it's very meta, but the new one has some interesting things to like twist.
Yeah. That I will agree with. But how did you arrive at The Matrix is not good?
Haven't seen it.
You had the worst takes. The worst takes.
No. The fans were bugging me.
Fair enough.
which is weird because I think many of us who have changed the way we live can relate to sort of suddenly understanding that the constructed reality for you has been a lie, a la Truman Show. So yeah, I got Truman pilled,
That's
when I
good.
left.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to
Hey.
give you points, young man. That was a good reference. You did
I
good
could-
there. That was
I
a
could go
good
on
pop
and
culture
on.
reference.
I could go on and on. Okay, let's keep it going. Tradwife. I've seen this
Oh.
one. It's been in my periphery for a long time, and now we're getting into some really, really sad areas. A traditional wife, so a woman who takes on a traditional sort of wifely role, but an auxiliary role. But that's not the whole picture because
Nope.
I mean,
because you've got quite a bland meal right now, Daniel. I think you want to add some white supremacy to the dish.
that's not what that movement needs. Well,
No, but like that's what that movement has.
Yeah, it sure does. Feminism gives us choices. Ordinarily, I would have no objection to somebody taking on a more traditional role if it's their choice and they've decided with full informed consent to do that and it's not coerced. But I often argue that if there's a god involved who can punish you, then it is coercive. Well, check this out. This is an article in The Guardian by Sian Norris, who describes the tradwife phenomenon as a toxic combination of anti-feminism, white supremacy, normalized abuse, and a desire to return to an imagined past. Oh,
Yeah.
oh man.
Imagined being the very key.
The way we never used to
modify
be.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We talk about how narratives inform our lives, and this is one that's coming up and creating it's something I would hope that nobody ever would subject themselves to. But here we are. I'm noticing that trad is becoming productive. There's an article in The Atlantic. Can I gift this to everybody? I'll just drop it in chat about the odious white nationalist Lauren Southern, who was described.
The person's name is actually Southern?
I know.
Wow.
She was being described as a trad thought.
Oh,
ugly stuff again.
Trad thought. Well, so, it's just there's a lot going on here.
It's an alt-right term for a single woman who supports traditional values but doesn't live them. So you've got trad and you've got thought, which we were having a discussion on Discord about thought being a sexually promiscuous woman and that it was an acronym for that hoe over there. And I said to myself, that's never an acronym. That's got to be a backronym. Turns out that the farther you go back to the origins of thought, the stronger the acronym signal gets, not weaker.
So not a folk etymology, etymology.
Yeah, it could actually not be a backronym. It could be an acronym.
Here we go.
And of course, it'll have, thank you, Dustin. It'll have its roots in a song. Okay, finally. So there was a sad bit, but watch out for trad coming up in lots of different ways. We'll keep an eye on that one. And Rosh, one from you. You there? Patch in, my friend.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, I'm Rosh.
Hey, Rosh.
I think I'm going to present to you one of my new favorite words, which I think is probably a good one to come after trad wives. And my word is girl dinner.
Oh, should we do the song?
I don't know if I know the song very well.
Oh,
but
it's like
girl dinner.
I'm missing a lot.
So girl dinner is a meal, and essentially it's just a bunch of snacks that require zero effort that you just bring together, and I like to refer to it as like a charcuterie board of snacks. So like cheese and bread and grapes and berries and like all of the things that are just really easy to do. And this it started earlier this year, and then since then TikTok has kind of like gone overboard with it. So there's the song, the jingle about it, and then there's also a filter where like 3 plates come over your head, and then it'll turn and it'll like give you a girl dinner. Like this is what your meal is going to be.
Nice.
And so it's pretty fun.
It is fun.
Now, Raj, do you want to speak to the sort of like the stuff that exists behind it, like the discourse around it in relation to like feminism and household labor and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's why I kind of think it's an interesting word to talk about after tradwives, because it's kind of the opposite of
of that mentality. It's not really a, yeah. So they're talking a lot about like like women doing all of this work around the house, and like they don't want to also just make food and cook. So it's kind of like a liberating thing where they can just like do whatever they want and eat whatever they want. And it also kind of pushes back against like this shame or like feeling that you need to be eating certain foods in order to like maintain like your body and your shape. And it's just about like embracing what you want, eating what you want, not really caring what other people are thinking about your food. It doesn't matter that you're literally eating grapes and cheese and having a glass of wine, like that's your dinner and it's what you want to do.
It's great.
Did you want to add anything else to that, Ben?
Just the discourse I've seen as well just is an acknowledgement of like were you to study how much time an individual man or woman, cis het
Yep.
man or woman would spend on preparing food when they are in a single state, the numbers are pretty similar, which is to say girl dinner and boy dinner, although they might end up looking quite different at the point of consumption, have a pretty sort of analogous kind of amount of work required, which is that like blokes will get like a can of stag chili and slop it out into a bowl and microwave it and that's dinner or whatever. But then when heterosexual people get together in a relationship, the amount of labor required for dinner goes through the roof, but only for one of the two of those human beings, right? So like basically when a heterosexual couple is formed or a unit is formed, the amount of time a man spends making his food effectively doesn't change, right? He might like genuflect towards peeling some potatoes or something like that, but women do, unfortunately, all of the work. And so girl dinner is actually sort of a bit of a feminist reclamation of going, you know what, it like this, we actually do the same stuff here, right? Like we both of us just like don't want to do this because cooking is boring and hard. I don't believe that, but like a lot of people do, and fair enough, right? Because it's time consuming, it's expensive, blah, blah, blah. And so the girl dinner is like a celebration, I think, almost of kind of going, you know what, we've had to wear this yoke for quite a long time, and I'm really happy to take it off. Really happy.
Okay, that answers my question about why it's a girl dinner and not a goblin dinner, the other word that we use for low effort stuff. I'm glad that's a girl dinner because that makes a lot more sense.
I was also reading a little bit about like the backlash of men about it too, which is also awful, where men are like talking about their dinners. So if you want to see men also trying to take the word because they're terrible, there's discourse on that too.
Just love it. Just like nobody, men, someone's talking about a thing that I have an opinion on.
A man has entered the room to give his manly view.
I will someone help me out here. I've also seen this shift into either girl money or girl spending or girl finances. Is anyone girl math? Thank you. Yeah, girl math. So girl math is a similar thing, although from what I've been observing, a little bit more irreverent. Was that you, Anika? Did you want to speak about girl math?
Yes, that was me. I've been seeing a lot about girl math lately. I don't know exactly how to describe. It's a way of conceptualizing spending money in a way that I think reduces the guilt of spending money on expensive things. Yeah, if anyone else wants to jump in, that's kind of the best I can do, I think.
I can share some examples I've heard of girl math being employed. And I want to be really, really clear. Everything that I've seen here is a very almost sort of like lovingly self-effacing acknowledgement of the silliness of what this thing is and how it works, right? So it's like girl math is buying all of your festival tickets 8 months before the festivals happen, because when the festivals happen, then they're basically for free. And stuff like that. Or like girl math is like, well, I have to buy the really, really expensive like napkins for the wedding, because if I get the cheap ones, then every time I look down at the napkins, I'm going to be really sad. And then later I'm going to have to spend a lot of money on therapy getting over my sadness about not having the wedding that I really wanted, which in fact will end up costing me rather a lot more. So I should just get the expensive napkins for my wedding.
Pharaoh Cat asks, is this kind of buying into the idea girls are bad at math? Is this kind of a humorous playful poke at that idea?
I would just, as soon as, and it's not going to happen, like as Rash was saying just before, it's going to take negative 4 seconds for a bunch of douchey men to start being like, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as that starts happening, it's like, well, the fun is dead. The fun is over. I think it's only fun if people are quite lovingly making fun of themselves. And I defy any freaking man out there, even the most like, oh, girls are bad at math guys. Really? Really? How much did you spend on the exhaust for your truck, my friend? Be honest. Because I see the welds. That shit is titanium. It is nothing less than $5,000.
Thank you both for that. Thanks for that input. Let me just do. Now, I guess we have a chance. We got a couple of minutes for any other words. What are you noticing out there?
In the chat.
One that I noticed and that I like is beige flag.
Yes.
But has this one been mentioned actually? Like now that I say it, like has this one been mentioned before in previous episodes?
We did do it. If you're caught up, you will have heard it like very recently. We had red flag and beige flag. Yeah.
Okay.
Which started out as a normal thing that makes you go, oh, you're a bit basic, but now has been changed to an enjoyable quirk that your partner has.
Oh, okay. I wasn't up to date on this one. I thought it was still like how boring are you?
Yeah, it started that way, and then it's just quickly morphed into like, this is the thing that actually low-key I kind of like about my partner. Like it's weird. It very quickly shifted. Like
having a favorite font is the old meaning, but that could be kind of a sweet thing.
Oh, you would say that, man who has his own font.
I do. And you can download it now. All right.
For the low price
of nothing. Who's got another one that may not have been featured?
I'm just looking through the chat to see if anything got mentioned there.
Ferricat,
loud scrolling, sorry, everything.
Ferricat wants strike to be a word of the week.
Oh, because there's just been a lot of that going on with labor movements and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly that. There's just so many strikes right now, and now like video game animators have authorized a strike if there's no things, and now the auto union as well has authorized a strike. So
bring it on.
Strike.
Yeah. And what I love is whenever I don't know about you, Ferricat, and depending on where you work and all that kind of stuff, but certainly where I work is not what I would call like a bastion of left-leaning ideology necessarily. It's not particularly conservative either, but I think just baseline people aren't that supportive of it. And I'll very loudly espouse like, yeah, heaps of things, striking. And people are like, but that means everything will get more expensive. And I'm like, yes, good. That is a good thing. It's obviously not a good thing if you're on the bones of your ass, but that's a separate conversation about how we need to support people who are like way down the lower end of whatever's going on in society. But like, yeah, we shouldn't be able to buy a little for like $1 that was made in China and that we throw out after a day. Like that is not a good thing. We should have people paid well. If I buy a shirt, I should look after it and I should try and keep it for like 5 or 6 years and wash it well and all that sort of thing instead of buying new clothes every year.
Yeah. One of the things I came across recently is apparently, I can't remember the name of the board in the USA that deals with labor laws and so forth, has apparently changed the rules very recently, which affect how unions can be created, and has made it easier for that to be created, because now if the company tries to union bust an attempt to get a union voted for, that union automatically becomes valid.
Nice. Take that.
Look, it's an interesting instance, right, of the law just actually making an inherent kind of sense, isn't it? Because if an organization is being like, well, we really actively don't want this thing to be a thing, then the law is like, well, then, but clearly it is a thing because you're
It's a-
working against it. You can't work against nothing.
That's the thing now. Angry, what have you got? You had a word in a different language.
So I'll make it short because I realize I've been talking a lot. So in French, there is a very, very recent one, like a few months old. It's very, very recent, at least on the internet, which is kwekube, which isn't a real word, but it's something that young children and teenagers will respond to adults, like figures of authority, when they say quoi, which means what. So they'll purposefully say something, like mumble something, and the figure of authority will say quoi, and they say kwekube, and it sounds.
Please tell me it's loser says what, please.
Exactly, and so they'll go kwekube, which is like it sounds super simple, but the internet, like French-speaking internet, at least in France, has gone completely feral around this, and it's become the new what's the word again? Scapegoat for like French,
Everything that's wrong with French society, basically.
exactly, French glossophobia, and like the French language going to shit, and
I love it.
Like because as you may know, France is very, very, like in France it's very strong, like this feeling of like wanting like linguistic conservatism, if you may.
Yeah. They have a whole academy just for it.
Oh yeah. And so this is a very, very big thing on the internet at the moment. Kwekube.
That's that has tickled me, not even pink. That's tickled me red. I love it. That's wicked.
Okay, cool. Got time for one more, if
Okay.
anybody's got one. And then we gotta wrap it up.
Privacy nightmare.
Lord Mortis, over to you.
You would come in with privacy nightmare, Lord Mortis.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on slowly for a while. I mean, in Australia, we've had data leakages and things like that, which is kind of the same thing. This concept of like capitalism just basically taking more information from people than they require, and then either not safeguarding it or selling it for more profit. TVs do it, and now it's been discovered your car is doing it too. So yeah, including in certain license agreements, if they figure out your sexual preferences, they will sell that data onwards. It's in their license agreement, so you agreed to it. So yeah, it's all. I'm wondering if that's gonna come out as like a thing. I mean, there's a thing. I just don't know if privacy nightmare is gonna end up being like a phrase that's used. But
yeah, some version of it. Yeah. Something, it's going to come up somewhere, somehow. We just haven't settled on it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, this has been so much fun, and it's been fun to have you on the show and be able to see you. So I would just like to say a huge thank you to everybody who gave us ideas for this episode. Thanks to the team from Speech Docs who transcribe all of our words, and most of all you lovely people who not only donate to keep the show going, but also actually show up and have fun with us. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you all.
Yay! These are always so much fun. Oh yes, I have to do some reading.
I hear that music. You have to imagine the music for this one. Oh.
Look, I feel like, if I'm being honest, the thing that I'm about to read is totally wasted words on the entire group of people who are currently listening to these words, but eventually we will release this episode for people who are not patrons, so I read for them, not for you lovely people. If you would like to help the show, you can give us ideas and feedback, like all of the human beings who are currently sitting in the lobby with us right now, who built this entire show over the ideas and feedback that I left for us on Discord. You can leave us a voice message on You can leave us a voice message on SpeakPipe, which I am still desperately wanting more people to do because I love hearing all of your voices. You can send us an old-fashioned email, hello@becauselanguage.com, or you can kick it really old school and you can do like normal human things like interacting with your friends and being like, hey, did you know this is really cool podcast that I listen to? You should listen to it too. And of course, you can consider becoming a patron, like all of the people who sat in this lobby with us and hung out, and then all of our other patrons who are probably going to listen to this episode just a little bit later when it gets released. You are all helping us do wonderful, amazing things. And from the bottom of my heart, like, as tragic as this might sound to some of you, highlight of my week doing Because Language. When there's a Because Language weekend, it's a good weekend. And you are all helping me be able to feel joy temporarily. So I would very much like you to know that I'm appreciative of that. So thank you to all of our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful patrons.
It's funny you feel that way, because I feel that way too. Like when I edit the show, I'm like, oh, I get to hang out with my. I develop a parasocial relationship with you. Yeah, I know, because you're not even there. Big shout out to our top patrons: Iztin, Termi, Elias, Matt, Whitney, Helen, Jack, Ferrocat, Lord Mortis, Grammar Yen, Larry, Christopher, Andy, James, Nigel, Meredith, Kate, Nasrin, Joanna, Nikolai, Keith, Aisha, Steele, Margaret, Manu, Roger, Rianne, Colleen, Ignacio, Kevin, Jeff, Andy from Logophilius, Stan, Kathy, Rush, Cheyenne, Felicity, Amir, Kenny Archer, Tim, Alyssa, Chris, Laurie, Angry Balls, Tig, Luis, and a couple of new patrons. They've joined up and they've taken out a yearly membership, not just monthly, which is a thing that you can do now. And they are Connie at the listener level and Keith at the friend level, which, by the way, betrays a wonderful confidence that we'll still be around in a year.
Love your optimism, guys.
A confidence that I endeavor
what are we at,
to.
12 years? I think it's a pretty safe bet now.
Yeah, our first show's been, we're in 2011. So
good.
We've been going for a while.
Good Lord. So, hey, can I do the last bit?
Okay.
Thank you again to all of our wonderful patrons. Our theme music was written and performed by Drew Kraplianov, who also performs with Ryan Bino and Didion's Bible, who have a new album out last week. So if you have not had a chance to, go and listen to Didion Bible's new album. It's a wonderfully sort of like fun, like low key, but like happy. It's the kind of music you need a bit more of in your life as the world slowly crumbles into the ocean, basically. It's nice. It's nice music. Thank you for listening. We will catch you next time, Because Language.
Thank you all. Bye.
Okay.